Great. It's 9 o'clock. So I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Select Board for Friday, May 8th, 2020. This meeting is being held pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Carver Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that individuals who would like to view or listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by watching us live, by tuning in to Comcast Channel 15, our Area 58 Government Access Channel. If, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access due to technical difficulties, a recording or other comprehensive record of proceedings of the meeting will be made available online as soon as possible. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could bring up our flag, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I will read our community prayer. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
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 Let's see, moving forward. The first item on our agenda this morning is a discussion and vote to set the annual town election date. I will just pass on some information since our last meeting. So I think at our last meeting, there was a motion and a second for discussion purposes of a date of June 6th for the annual town election. Since that time, I have heard from our town clerk, who has expressed some concern about having the town election during the same week that she's trying to prepare for town meeting, which is scheduled for April 9th. And it is her request that if town meeting is still going to be on April 9th, on June 9th, that we move the election back toward the end of the month, whether it be one of those Saturdays, June 20th or June 27th. She would like to avoid the 6th and the 13th because they're in the same week as town meeting. I think she's also had some conversations with Kevin about what some of the social distancing guidelines might be, tape on the floor, things like that, to keep people separate. And I think her thought was that if we move the election back a little bit, that may lessen or eliminate some of those guidelines. Obviously, none of us have any idea whether that will happen or not, but those are her thoughts. So I wanted to pass those along to the board.
Chairman?
Mr. Clark.
Just intuitively, I would think we're going to have more trouble pulling a town meeting together on June 9th than an election on June 6th. The idea of going into the auditorium and sitting, 6 feet apart. You told me that apparently the Senate has passed a bill, still has to go to the House, that would allow a town meeting with a quorum that could be possibly 25% or less of what a full quorum normally would be, and allow the town meeting to go forward. I think it sounds like it makes more sense to keep the election where it is and hope that maybe the restrictions on holding a town meeting open up by the end of June, as opposed to moving the election and keeping town meeting on the 9th. I just can't imagine. I mean, that's basically what, a little over a month away, that even if we're able to somehow pull it off, how many people are going to want to go into an auditorium under those circumstances? So I think it makes more sense to move town meeting than to move the election, personally.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So, and I think I copied you on all of these, Mark. I had some email discussions with Dave Siedentoff about how many people could fit into our auditorium with the 6-foot distancing requirements. And he actually went down there and measured the seats, measured the distance between rows. And he said that using the numbers that he came up with using the 6-foot distancing rule means we could seat approximately 129 people in that auditorium. And
Sarah, is that the lower portion only, or does that also include the upper portion where we normally seat people that are from out of town? You know?
I believe it's the entire auditorium.
Okay.
So out of town people would have to go sit in another room or something else. I was also in a discussion with Rich Goulart earlier about possibly having a satellite location at the elementary school, because my impression from talking to him very briefly was that it's easier to have one satellite location like that rather than 10 or 12 classrooms spread around the middle high school. So I think, in my opinion, I think that having the town meeting first makes sense. I don't think there's going to be that huge of a problem. I mean, people go in the grocery store all the time and deal with this kind of thing. So I don't really find that the issue. I'd rather wait on the election date myself, simply because Ron, I mean, I know you're eager to get out of here, but I think that
It's got nothing to do with that. I just think it's a question. Don't forget, we're still relying on the state saying it's okay. Right now, it's not okay to have more than 10 people get together in one place. They still have to. I mean, so we could end up not having town meeting or an election in early June, which is more likely.
But my feeling about the election is that because there's been such a long hiatus between the last time, people were able to get together or have a meet and greet or whatever. I'd like to give all the candidates a chance to kind of get back on their feet and have as much time as they can to do whatever they need to do to get ready. I just don't see, I don't see rushing it myself.
Mr. Belvin, thoughts?
To be honest, I think an election would be a easier thing to pull off than town meeting because of the distancing. I have no problem with an earlier election and then put off town meeting until the 20th. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I will just point out that on the agenda we have in front of us, we have no vote or opportunity to change town meeting date. That's not on the agenda, so that's something we would have to do if we wanted to at our next meeting. That's not on the agenda.
Yep, good point.
Mr. LaFond, any thoughts?
No, well, I know that having spoken to the town clerk this week and as recently as this morning, I know that her recommendation for her own purposes with regard to an election was to hold it later, the 20th or the 27th. I don't think that was, I don't think she was thinking about the town meeting date at the same time. I think she's talking about her ability to have the resources available to ensure a smooth election. I don't think she has been briefed on this particular question that has been raised regarding earlier election in a later town meeting.
I don't think she has either. And I guess the one thing I would point out as far as the election goes, I guess this could apply to town meeting as well, but there's so many rules as far as the election. She has been alone down there. Yeah. And we're going to need to bring people in to help her and to gear up for the election. And I think that may take some time. I wonder myself if 30 days is enough for her to be able to gear up for that election.
And well, I have assured her as recently as this morning that whatever of staff she needs to call back from the furlough, that she can feel free to do that as early as she feels it's appropriate, whether it's as early as today or the beginning of next week. I know in our conversations, there's a lot of mistakes we can make, but an election in the smooth running of an election is not one of those.
Yep.
Mr.
Right.
LaFawn, can you tell us, are there things on the town meeting warrant that have to be voted in June? Are there things, I know there's an issue with flood maps that I think you and I had talked about at some point. Are there things that we have to vote, say, I don't know, put a deadline up by the end of June on that town meeting warrant?
Actually, I would defer to Elaine a little bit on that. She's much more familiar with the warrants at this point.
Okay.
Elaine?
Yep, so I believe it's just the planning and zoning articles that you guys have not voted on yet.
Okay,
They were updated in the most recent draft I sent for Tuesday's meeting.
Mhm.
There have been some minor changes. Meg was able to fill in a few more numbers. I know we still have some gaps. We don't have anything from the CPC yet on their article. And I think, Rick, we just need to talk to Meg. She has one more article I think she needs to add in there. So that
Okay.
would just need to be voted on.
but
Anything
they need to be voted by the end of June?
No, I think what Elaine, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about action that the board
By the,
may wish to in regard to the warrant itself.
right.
I think-
What I'm speaking about is does the town need to take any action by the end of June? Is there anything that the town needs to vote?
I would, again, I confess, Mark, I'm not as familiar with each warrant article.
Okay.
This time, I can assure you I will be. But I would suggest that because the essentially what is being requested in the warrant, those are items and numbers that become effective July 1 for the annual town meeting. I would suggest that there isn't anything that would be that pressing that it couldn't wait.
Okay.
Mark?
Yes, Mr. Belvin.
So no matter if it's the town meeting that comes first or the election, my suggestion would be that there be at least 14 days in between those times, just in case we get a influx of COVID cases in between that time for our own residents. We need that little space in between, just in case, because if we start getting any peaks in between that time, we need to shut things down and go back to the drawing board.
I would also agree that I think the town clerk needs a period of time in between the two just to prepare for both items.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Clark.
My concern is that we can talk now about town meeting being June 9th and the election at the end of the month, but that's without knowing that we can hold town meeting at this time. Right now, based on the restrictions that are in place by the state, we cannot hold a town meeting. We can apparently hold an election because towns have already held elections.
Correct.
So if we decide to put the election at the end of the month, we may very well end up with town meeting at the end of the month based on when restrictions get lifted, which is the scenario that the town clerk was trying to avoid, of having to entertain both an election and a town meeting within the same range. And as Mr. Belvin said, who knows what's going to be happening relative to the climate. Hopefully we're on a downslope now, but anyway, so we have no control over what the state's going to do for the town meeting. We can always move town meeting, but if we decide to put off the election, we could end up with a scenario the town clerk is trying to avoid, of having both town meeting and the election in the same week.
No, all good points. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we have our election on June 6th.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor of June 6th as an election date?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
3-1. So the election date will be June 6th.
And
vote-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would suggest that you put on the agenda for the next meeting the idea of moving the town meeting date till toward the end of, well, we can decide when, but to avoid the scenario of having both the same week, I think we should move it off, and then hopefully we'll have the guidelines to people being able to attend, because it's one thing to know how many people can go. It's another thing to how many people feel comfortable going. And a month from now, things would have to be, or a month and a half from now, hopefully conditions are far better than they are currently.
Yeah. I was just going to suggest that to Mr. LaFond, and also, Mr. LaFond, if you could contact town council and see what they have for available dates, because obviously that's going to be a consideration as well. That may limit what dates are available to us. So if you could
I will do that.
get in touch, and we'll discuss that at our next meeting.
Okay.
So vote to approve the annual town election warrant. So I think you all saw Elaine sent out an email this morning with the sample town election warrant on the second page of the warrant. I don't know if you saw that. Now, obviously, the date that was in there would need to be changed. So I don't know if we can approve that. Can we approve that conditionally, Rick, with the date of June 6th going in there?
Yeah, yes, of course. Yeah, I don't see any issues with that.
I'll make a motion to approve the town election warrant using the date of June 6th for the election 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. All right. Discussion?
So this includes the money articles?
No, this is just the town election.
Just the election warrant, Bob. Just
Okay,
page
just
two.
the first part?
Yeah, just that portion that talks about the election date.
Okay, I have no problem with that. Thanks.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think that's all we have. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, May 19th. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Robert
Aye.
Feldman, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you. Everyone
You too.
stay
Thank
safe.
you.